and then we'll jump in. Father God, thank you for this time that we've got together as we try and take a deep dive together and hear your heart for how we're supposed to be in this weird modern age that we live in. Help us this evening to hear you and to hear each other. Amen. Amen. So some of you will already be experiencing a little bit of anxiety just because I've asked you to leave your phones upon the table, for those of you that wanted to do that. This evening our topic for Equip is Faith Subscribed, and we're going to do this in 3 parts. Okay? Part 1 is where are we? And I'm very aware that this is just one voice. So, as you go away and reflect on these things, you might come up with a different timeline or a different spin. The part 2 is going to be looking at a little bit of kind of Bible text and seeing what Jesus has to say on some stuff. George, can I ask you a favor? Just you come in, can you just leave your phone on the table? Put a little post-it note on it. Everyone else will get mentioned online for whoever else comes in after 6:30 as well, personally by name. And then part 3 is going to be really a sort of brain dump in no particular order of some things that I have found useful in trying to navigate this terrain. Okay, so can I tell you first of all what this is not? This is not going to be a how to post really, really well on social media. Okay, Sarah can do that one for us at some point. This is more kind of in the frame of how do we navigate? How do we do well in personally in this kind of environment and thrive? So if that's okay, then we'll dive in. I mean, if it's not okay, come back next week. I'll write a different talk, and we'll see how we get on. Let's dive in. A brief history of everything. About 1850, depending on when you kind of take the date that this wondrous machine, finally was fully in production. The printing press, movable type, everything from this moment forward changed because you suddenly had the ability to reproduce information. Movable type, in case you haven't figured it out, is if you go into an antique shop and you find one of those wooden blocks that's got a backwards letter on it, that is the beginnings of movable type. Really, really artsy. If you can get hold of a full set, incredibly expensive. So this led to the printing of books, the printing of newspapers eventually, and the dissemination of information to everyone. It was an enormous level, because suddenly information that previously had been the prize of the religious and the elites was now beginning to be in the hands of everyone. And then you've got industrial revolution, so the machines start to do the work, and we help the machines to do the work. I failed history at A-level, so I'm not going to tell you any more about that. No, not even A-level, GCSE, because I flunked some other A-levels, so they made me do history GCSE. And I got a U. Hooray. 1876, the telephone. Mr. Alexander Graham Bell. And, I've asked you to leave your phones, the modern day equivalent, on the table over here. But it wasn't until kind of 1895 that we begin to get radio communication with Morse code. And then the first... where have we got to? The first commercial radio station and the first transatlantic phone call, believe it or not, was not until 1927. I was stunned when I read that. Next leap forward. Obviously nothing else happened in the gap. the rise of the internet, but not as you know it. This was just some computers in some academic institutions beginning to talk to one another. Then 1991, with this great Englishman, apparently, Mr. Tim, invented the World Wide Web, and everything as we know it began to change. At the same time, mobile phones. Hands up if you can remember your first mobile phone. Mine was an orange, second generation orange MR2 with an aerial that pulled out the top and a flip that came down and a removable battery. I had 3 of them. The batteries were about twice the size of the phone. And yes, you could get texts on them. Way back in 1992, that's when the first SMS messages were being sent. First social media. A platform that I'd never heard of until today. Bolt.com in 1996. Anyone remember Bolt.com? Nope, it's gone, apparently. It did try and make a rebirth at some point, but no, it's gone, thankfully. 1998, Google, which then went on to become a verb. You know, because it's what we do. We go and Google stuff. We don't even search for it, we just Google it. 2004, Facebook. Can you remember when you first went on Facebook? If your hands up if you are on Facebook. There's a few of us, most of us. I can remember being on Facebook, must have been 2008, I think. And then trying to persuade my wife and my brother to go on. It took about another 5 years to get my brother on Facebook, and then after that I pretty much left. So I'm not on it very much. YouTube 2005, and then the greatest invention of all, sorry for all of you robot phone users, but the iPhone was invented, released in 2009 by the late Mr. Steve Jobs. 2012 to 2018, AI chatbots begin to kind of proliferate. So you talk, but it seems like there's a person on the other end, but it's not really. And whether this is a push-button phone system or whether it's something online, this begins to kind of proliferate everywhere to the point where this then in our homes. Anyone got Siri or Alexa? Yeah, okay. My favorite trick on, it's great to do this on Alexa. It's less easy to do it on Siri because it doesn't let you in. But on Alexa, if ever I'm left alone in your house and you pop out of the room, I will put appointments in your Alexa for years in advance with reminders and naughty titles. It's just something that amuses me. And the worst one that I actually did was I did manage to break into my brother's computer when he was out of the room, and I put a very naughty appointment in his calendar with a reminder for about 6 months in advance. What I didn't realize is that I hadn't put it in his diary. I'd put it in his wife's diary, which was shared with all of her office colleagues. So they all got the reminder about what my brother was doing at the same time. So don't let me anywhere near your tech is the learning point for this. So generative AI comes next. Which is November last year. Generative AI, where you can ask this thing a question and then it spits you out sometimes helpful things and sometimes made up stuff. But it doesn't just do text, so it has a bank of text that it has learnt on, and you ask it a question and then it feeds back what it thinks is the best answer, and it can write text, it can write essays. So if you're now in an educational establishment and you're not doing vivas for your students, but they have to hand stuff in, or everything they hand in could be entirely made up, and they can generate it in 5 minutes. So I tried it out to try and write a little book on how to write funeral tributes. I got to about 10,000 words in about half an hour. It was okay. I mean, it's slightly dull, but no plans to publish it at the moment. Maybe later. But you can now do this with images. So even on the church computer, we use software called Canva. So you can put in some text prompts and it will generate some images for you. I tried to get it to do one for this talk, but it was terrible. So I'm not even going to show it. But you can also get this now to generate video. So you can put in a set of text prompts and a style, and it will generate video clips for you. In fact, it will generate more than that. If you put in the right kind of prompts, it will generate a lot of video for you. What does that mean? What it means is that from November 2022, nothing that you read on the internet you can trust. And from that moment on, nothing. Sorry if that's a harsh reality, but that is how it is. 79% of adults around the world are on social media. If you want to leave your phone on the table with a little post-it, more latecomers, on the table. Just with everyone, you're allowed to put your name on it, that's absolutely fine. 79% of adults are on social media. That's October 2023. Obviously, all of these supposed facts could be made up because that's the world that we now live in. So you might want to go and check everything that I say this evening. The average American adult spends 2.4 hours per day on social media. It took 500 years, almost, to get from the printing press to the first transatlantic phone call. 32 years to get from the World Wide Web, so actual web pages, to generative AI. Just 32 years, all within our lifetimes. That leap is just mind-blowingly staggering. I remember being in a kind of call center job in the early 90s and mid-90s, trying to get hold of an email address. Everything was done via fax still at that point, but email addresses were there. And I remember trying to get, and it was still, you couldn't even do that. Because it was only just becoming a thing. So only 32 years from the World Wide Web to generative AI. Where are we? Average screen time, total screen time per day for Americans, again this is 2023, is 6 hours 59 minutes. I bet they wish that was 7 hours 1 minute, don't they? 6 hours, 59 minutes. This is where it gets really scary. And I'm sorry that this is all Americans, it's just that's where some of the most recent studies have been done. Americans consume information, both digital and analog, so printed material, newspapers, books, for an average of 11.8 hours per day. So 11.8 hours a day of consuming things. How much information do we consume per day? And again, this is Americans. Someone totted it up, and they reckoned that it was now 34 gigabytes worth of information per day. Now, most of us don't think in gigabytes, so let me just try and express that differently. It's increased 5% a year for the last 500 years. So a person today is consuming as much information in a day as someone 500 years ago would have consumed in a lifetime. As much in a day as in a lifetime. It's the equivalent, 34 gigabytes of visual data is the equivalent to reading Tolkien's Hobbit, which is 95,000 words, 95,356 if you want to be precise. Some of you like preciseness. Every day. Every single day. But the shift that's just happened, I think, is going to be the biggest shift of all. And, I'm not sure we even know what it's like yet, because in some senses it's happened to us gradually. It's been like being boiled in a pot. I think that in the last 32 years, what's happened is that we've moved from being able to make a choice about what we consume to a machine making a choice about what we consume on our behalf. It's been gentle. So going from web pages, which is the equivalent of a library out there and you choose what to go and read and look for, to Google, which ranks and prepares what it thinks that you're looking for, and you know, we never get past page 2, max page 3 in terms of looking at the search results. I mean, who wants to go to the restaurant that's on page 3? No one. You want to go to it's all collated. But we're moving from a place where even the surface choice of we know that it's been collated for us to it's just all been chosen for us in advance has been prepared for us by the likes of Facebook and YouTube, where the endless scroll means we're no longer choosing what we are looking for. We're just choosing to be in that environment and choosing to surrender our choice to whatever comes next. Yeah? I think we're rapidly being carried in the wrong direction. And it's hardwired into us in terms of dopamine and how we are addicted to small rewards and notifications and constant checking. And by the way, this talk is from a person that is in this with you, okay? Not someone who has this sorted, okay? So please, especially for the stuff that you hear towards the end, what I don't want to hear from any of you, like 3 months down the line, is, oh, Mark, you said that this is how you did it all the time, and you didn't do it then. Yeah, I'm a person, okay? I'm trying to figure out and navigate how to do all this stuff, as are you. So, that's where we've got to. Anyone feeling encouraged? Hurrah! Hopefully there's encouragement, because what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the Bible. That always seems like a good plan. It is the best plan of all. And given that I've taken all of your phones away, you've given them up willingly, surrendered them over there. I will have to read these to you, and then you'll have to go and look them up later. But if you want to, when you go and look at if you go back and look at the video that will appear on YouTube, under the kind of to the right-hand side of the title and stuff, you'll find 3 dots. If you click on those, one of the options there, in about 3 days after it's been up, will be transcript. Often it arrives pretty instantly, actually, which is slightly worrying. So you can go back and you can search for all this stuff. And I'll try and put some titles on it as well so that you get the references. So John chapter 13. I'm going to read you a little bit more than's on the screen behind me. The evening meal was in progress. The devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God, and that he was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist, and after he had poured water into a basin, he began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. Jesus is the model for us. Not just the model, but the person that leads us, because he's present with us. So these stories are stories that happened in a time and place, but he's also present with us to help us to walk these things through here and now. In his earthly life, he lived with purpose. He knew at this moment, and it's the preceding kind of chapter and a bit before we get to this bit that we've been in the mornings. He knows what's coming. He is living with purpose and intent. How many times do we go through the day, through the internet, with the things that we're looking at, and we're not living with purpose and intent? but we're just caught up in whatever has been presented to us. And sometimes what we get caught up in is this thing that we feel like we need to know. Yeah? You know, happened to me this week. I had a bit of time in the car on Friday, 4 hours in the car, and I just found myself constantly wanting to put Times Radio on. I'm sorry, that's what I listened to find out whether or not Searle Braverman had resigned or been kicked out of office yet. And I was just so desperate to find out. You know, we'll have to wait till, Monday or Thursday now or something, whenever other things have happened. But I was caught up in this story. Was it purposeful? An utter waste of my driving time. Complete waste of space. Why? Well, nothing's happened. Not jot has happened. All that happened was a lot of people talked very, very authoritatively about absolutely nothing for hours. It wasn't purposeful. Bottom line is I wasted most of the journey. Actually, for about half an hour of it, I was writing some of this talk with a dictation thing that I do on my phone, but that's a whole other. With the screen off, I hasten to add, while bombing down the motorway. He lived with purpose, even when others around him were falling away. Even when others around him were planning other things that evening. He lived with purpose. He lived with purpose even though what was ahead of him was unimaginably horrible and painful. Yet he was still purposeful. Why? How did he do it? Well, he knew where he had come from. He'd come from the Father. And he knew where he was going. And I don't think that phrase refers to the cross. I think it refers to what's the other side of the cross, where he gets reunited with his Father. He knew where he had come from. He knew where he was going. So in the gap, he was able to live with purpose. Folks, how many times do we not live with purpose? How many times do we get caught up in, whether it's the news or whether it's social media stuff or whatever it might be, and we get caught up in something else rather than living with purpose? And I don't mean purpose in terms of graft and, I mean purpose in terms of our kingdom purpose, which is all about what we've been talking about this term. Remaining, soaking in Jesus. Romans chapter 8. Oh, man, I love this passage. And on the screen behind me, I have written Romans chapter 5. It's not Romans chapter 5, it's Romans chapter 8. As you all know, I have by now, having been around for a little while, I've got a few favorite Bible passages. Romans chapter 8 is one of them. And periodically, I will just have Romans chapter 8 as my Bible reading every single day. And I will often do that for kind of 3 or 6 month blocks at a time, because it is absolute kingdom gold. And if I get someone that's a new Christian, I will recommend to them that they read this. What are you going to do? Don't worry about Mark's gospel. Just go and read Romans chapter 8 every single day for 6 months, and just see what it does to you. Let me read you just a little bit. Romans 8 verse 5. This is where my dyslexic errors come from. Those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what their flesh desires, but those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Folks, we can have our minds set, our minds governed by all sorts of things. And there is a battle going on for our minds, for our thinking. And our bodies, our fleshly desires, want to pull us in a different direction. And there is a battle on for what we think. And where we're going to set our attention, to have our minds set on the King, to have our minds set, that's a choice, to choose his rule and reign, to choose his governance. To have our minds set is about the place where we're choosing to dwell. To have our minds governed is about who are we deciding is in charge. Is it me? Or is it King Jesus? Because if it's me, I know that my thoughts are wonky. They are like my spelling. Sometimes they are wobbly and the letters get in the wrong places. And the same is true for my thinking. So the choice that I can make is that I want Jesus to be king, and I want him to be the governor of my thinking, so that my thinking becomes his thinking. Yeah? None of you in this room will ever do a baptism course with me unless you come and help to teach it. But one of the things that I teach on the baptism course is that we need to change our minds. Yeah? That we literally need to change our minds out for the mind of Christ. We need to have our brains washed with his thinking. Brains washed? Doesn't sound very nice. And I'll tell the folks that are up for baptism a story of a bishop and an atheist who were on some radio program one day. This was before AI made it up, so it must have happened. And the atheist challenges the bishop on live radio and says, "It sounds to me like you're just brainwashing everybody." And the bishop responds with something like, "Yes, but at least we know what we're washing our brains with." I don't know about you, I need my brain washed. I need it constantly cleansed by the King of Kings. And the bit that I do in that is I make a choice. I choose that he's the governor. Yeah? Because when I live by the flesh, it leads to death. But when I live by the Spirit, it leads to life and peace. And if, as a little bit later on in this passage, it says, verse 15, if I'm led by the Spirit, then I'm a child of God. I'm a child of the Most High God. And that is a great place to live from. Next set of verses. Hopefully I've got the verses right on the screen this time. Yes, I have. Excellent. Romans chapter 5, verses 27 to 30. And before I read them, there is grace upon grace. But we can't water down what Jesus said. But there is grace upon grace. Hello. What did I say? Yes, I've moved on. I meant Matthew. So the screen is correct, my notes are correct, but my words are incorrect. I have been generated by AI somewhere along the line. It's all gone beat tong. So there is much grace, but at the same time we can't water down what Jesus has said. Okay? So here's the little bit of context around it as well, because I've not put the whole lot on the screen. You have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than your whole body be thrown into hell. That's pretty rough, isn't it? But it says what it says. If you think that the measure, the drive that Jesus brings is for freedom and transformation into our own image for all of the sexual morality stuff, just go back and read these set of passages. What he does is he takes it from outside action to even the action of our heart. And he says, I know what's going on here. And I care about what's going on here. And even though the outward appearance might be all right, he's still wanting to challenge what's going on in our hearts and our minds, the places that we look. I have just So you know, I have a little kind of ticker in my eyes, even when I'm driving along the road, especially in the summer, which is, I have eyes, I will notice things because I'm a person, but it's not okay to notice twice. So I will often be driving along the road with my wife, and I will be going, oh, look at that thing over there, Meg, isn't that amazing? Because I've just seen something over here that I don't want to be dwelling on twice. Yeah? I have a choice. I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. The recommendation here is cut it off. Now, I'm not particularly recommending that you cut off arms or gouge out your eyes. But the principle is really significant. And I think the principle that I extract from this is that we can make an advanced choice to do something different. Let me say it again. We can make an advanced choice, a choice in advance to do something different. And this works with temptation or just stuff. Because sometimes there is temptation, sometimes there is just dross. But God is interested in what's going on in our hearts, and we can choose to remove the options for us. What happens with addicts is there is this previous event where they have looked at or seen something or taken something, they get clean, and then they spend 100 or 1,000 actions rotating round choosing that thing again. That's what happens. So someone takes drugs, gets free, and they're doing well. There's then 100 or 1,000 actions where they just move a little bit closer, and it all looks fine, and then bosh, we're back there. To make an advanced choice to remove the option so that you cannot go there. So those are the three kind of Bible passages that I kind of wanted us to hold in our minds. And now this is the bit that I think might come out as a jumble, but I hope some of it is useful. Because I was like, I've tried to kind of gather some of this stuff and frame it, but if you like it, some of it is from conversations with people, some of it is what I do in order to try and navigate this stuff. So I hope some of it's helpful. Can you all just stand up and wriggle, breathe for a moment? Come on, just breathe and wriggle, because I want you to focus for the last bit. And put your coat on if you're cold. I've taken my hat off because I'm pacing. Brilliant. Right, you ready? Let's dive in. Last little bit. What can we do as Christians, followers of Jesus, in this world that we are in? Because unless you all want to go on a desert island, can I come with you, by the way? Then I don't know that there's many of those places left where we can live without the world that we're in. So we need to figure out how do we navigate this world. So the first, I've written a couple of these. I've got kind of three areas: thinking, cutting stuff off, positive choice. 4 areas: positive choices and behaviors. So the first one, think. This sounds like a weird one to say, but I would encourage you to distrust what you see and what you read. Okay? You will have heard me in talks from here say, I'm going to say some stuff. I want you to go and look. I want you to read these Bible passages for yourself. What am I inviting you to do? I'm inviting you to think. I'm not here. Jeff's not here. Jez, Meg, those others that preach are not here to think for you. Okay? We're here to, if you like, hopefully inspire, challenge, encourage. We're not here to think for you. We want you to do the thinking. And the same goes for what you bump into on the web. I would encourage you to distrust what you read. And that's not a kind of, the word's gone. It's not a conspiracy theory thing. I think that's just the nature of the world that we live in. just because something's there does not make it true. So distrust what you see. I would encourage you as well to value wisdom and depth rather than instant opinions. Okay? So a better use of my time rather than listening to the weird rants about Searle Braverman, can't even say her name, on Friday, would actually to have been to read a political history of prime ministers of the United Kingdom. That would have been a better use of 4 hours of my life. I would have come away from it richer, more informed. Value some wisdom and some depth. And we've seen it with the stuff over the last month, with the hugely complex stuff around what's going on in Gaza. And some of the voices that are now being heard in terms of the more considered stuff that is being written, that actually acknowledges the complexity of what's going on, are much better for us than some of the kind of instant knee-jerk responses. So I'd encourage you to engage with those. I'd encourage you to engage your critical voice. Ask questions. Don't just accept what you hear. And as much as I would love you just to embrace and accept what you hear from me, it is a good thing to go, Mark, what did you mean by that? That's not what I understand. And to engage in a conversation about it is healthy. Don't just accept what you hear. And the last one in this little one is ask. Ask who's talking. Who's talking? Who's, where have they come from? What's their agenda? If it's UK politics or American politics or anywhere else, who's funding them? Yeah? Who's paying their salary? Ask. Because actually, all of us, when we speak with an agenda. We speak from a platform, from a place. We bring stuff. And in order to understand what's being said, we need to understand what's behind it. Make sense? Good. Next thing. Cut it off. If you've got one of these Apple type devices, I believe there is a version of this on the robot version of phones. That's the Android ones. I'm sorry. It's my little family joke. My sister has a robot phone, and all the rest of the family have Apple phones. So on an iPhone, there is this thing called focus modes, and it is amazing. On an Android, you'll find the same thing under digital well-being. What focus modes do is they change your phone from being having one kind of look and a set of notifications to something different. So my phone most of the time has kind of got lots of screens on it. But in the mornings, it doesn't look like that. In the mornings, it looks like this. There's just the list of apps. There's no other screen apart from the info one. And the apps that are there are the Bible reading app, 2 Bible reading apps, fitness app, journal app. There you go, there's an insight into my life. The scales, Bluetooth connection, and Strava, as well as something I'm tracking and switching the lounge media on. That's it. Everything else is gone. I can get access to it, but it's made it more difficult. As normal, every morning this is on, and it clicks in the evening as well. If I'm being really distracted, then I will add to this in the evenings that the brightness goes down to 20% and it goes into black and white as well, because I want to make the thing less attractive. And so what I'm doing is I'm choosing in advance to make my phone less attractive in the mornings and in the evenings, because I want to be present during those times. I want to be attentive to what Meg's saying, what God's saying. And the apps that are readily available, are the ones that are healthy for me. Yeah? The Bible app, the scales, the fitness app. The reason the scales are on there is because my response to grief is to eat pies and drink wine, so I'm working on that bit. Focus modes. Next one. Just because YouTube or whatever thing that you're on has fed you up something to watch and it looks shiny and interesting, it doesn't mean that you should watch it or read it then. One of the best things that you can do is choose some form of read it or watch it later system. Okay? So that means you get an interesting video and you go, I'm going to add that to my watch it or read it later thing. Okay? And what it means is that then, at a time that you're choosing to sit down and watch, read interesting things, that you've got a pool of things that you could watch that are interesting, and a pool of things that you could read that are interesting, and you can choose, actually, is this as interesting and shiny as I thought it was originally? Here's the thing. 80% of the time, it's not. And you can just choose to have your life back. Watch it or read it later. If that is a helpful thing for you, I can make some suggestions about how you do that, because there's a ton of different ways. Because I want to try and be ruthless about my phone, I've got to wake it up again, so I've got access to more apps. I also use an app called OneSec. OneSec is a paid-for app, but you could do the similar kind of thing with a timer. What OneSec does is every time I want to open a particular app on my phone, it kicks in with a timer to then basically give me a breath break to go, do you really want to do this? Let me show you how it works. So I've got 2 email apps on my phone. One has got access to my church email and the other one doesn't. So this is the one, this is what happens with OneSec if you try and click on it, and it's the work email app. So it opens the app, and then it pops up with this. Pause. What do you want to do? And this one is set for, I think, 30 seconds. And it says, I made 3 attempts to open this app in the last 24 hours. And then it asks you a question. And the big button is, I don't want to open the email app. And the next one is, continue to open the default email app. And it's given me 4 suggestions of other things that I could do instead, which I have pre-entered. They are, go on to Kindle, because it is a good app with good, sensible, wise, deep reading on it. Go for a run. Sometimes I go for a lot of runs. I mostly ignore these, but they're still there for as a good suggestion. Go for a walk. Open Notion, which is my journaling kind of task app where I do lots of thinking. Or you can open the app. Even after you click on open the app, continue to open default app. It then says, what is your intention for opening the default mail app this time? Of which there are bored, stressed, tired, procrastinating, anxious, sad, can't sleep, on the toilet, or work. There you go. So that is one of the things that I do. Now, what's interesting about that is that you can then set that up to be even more irritating. So the next thing on this list is if an app is distracting you on your phone, remove the app. But you can then still get on the app if you go on Safari. So if I go on Safari and put in YouTube, because I don't have YouTube on my phone, then what happens is I get this. It blocks the screen. And I can then choose to continue to unlock it with OneSec. And what happens? It's got a 60-second timer on it before it'll even let me on to the next stage. Just because I know that I'm so stupid. I forget. I mean, you're all probably amazing and much better than this, but you see, it's still not even let me go anywhere near it, because I don't want YouTube on my phone. Yeah? I do have access to YouTube on my iPad, but I don't want it on my phone, because it's really distracting. And I don't have Facebook on my phone. If I try and go on Facebook on my phone, I can't even get on it. It just blocks the whole thing. The phone just shatters and breaks itself and removes its battery. No, it doesn't do that. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I wish. What else can you do to cut yourself off from these things that are unhelpful? Turn off notifications. Just turn them off. Don't have them on. Choose at some point during the day when you're going to go and check those apps that are really important to you. Yeah, if you've got work, yep, work might need to call you. But you might need to make a choice about what times work can call you and what times they can't. Turn off notifications. Leave your phone behind. How many of you left your phone behind this evening? I know 2 of you did. Well done. That's amazing. Leave your phone behind. Or leave it in the other room. Yeah. One of our house rules, sometimes we're not so good at it, but we try, is phones don't go upstairs at bedtime. You know? We want to be with each other. We want to go to sleep. Leave it behind. Unsubscribe. Oh, this is where I'm gonna fess up to my how I function. Unsubscribe. So we all subscribe to stuff on email, and if you've had an email address for any amount of time, you will have a ton of things that you are subscribed to. There are a number of things that can help you to unsubscribe. Don't use a service called Unroll Me, because they basically sell your data so you'll get even more mail. But there is a service called Clean Fox, it doesn't cost very much, that will go through all of your inbox and all of your email archive and find every email that is a subscription email and give you the option to unsubscribe from it. However, I don't consider this to be enough. You're seeing a little bit of how my brain works. So this is the if you like the pulling the ripcord option on how to manage email. I have set up a Google filter for the word unsubscribe, and no email that has got the word unsubscribe in it will ever appear in my inbox. It is genius. How to have a clear inbox. Filter out all emails that contain the word unsubscribe. And they then go into a folder that is called Inbox Mass. And I will go and just look through that kind of every 2 or 3 weeks and just check that I haven't missed anything really life-changing. And guess what? I almost never did. What you then have to do is go and add a couple of undo things to the filter. So filter out unsubscribe, but don't filter out Amazon, eBay, PayPal, or West Wilts Vineyard. Great, good. That's how that works. The other option is just if the phone is being a pain for you, get a dumb phone. Get a stupid phone. A friend of mine had to have a stupid phone for about 15 years because he could not trust himself to have a smartphone. He now has a smartphone, but it is shared with his wife. He's a wise man. If having a smartphone is a problem for you, then get a dumb one. Positive choices. This is slightly more encouraging. If you are online, tell stories rather than make statements. Share testimonies. You know, and the great thing about a story or a testimony is no one can tell you that it's not true, because that is one of the rules of our culture. If it's a story and if it's your truth, that's a terrible statement. I hate that statement. If it's your truth, then no one can tell you any different. So it's absolutely okay as a Christian to put out testimonies and stories. But don't just save it for the good days. If you are going to be online and sharing stuff, share the stuff that's not great too, and in a good way. Share the real stuff, because if you're all so amazingly glossy, then when we meet you, we're going to be terribly kind of, oh gosh, I'm never going to live up to you. And life's not really like that. For me personally, I'm not on Facebook a lot. In 2015, I decided it was doing my head in, so I unfollowed almost everybody who I was friends with, rather than unfriending them. That means that none of their stuff appears on my feed, and I do periodically go back on. At the moment, I'm off. So I just find my head is a lot clearer, if I'm not having the endless scroll. If you haven't read the book Atomic Habits, look at Atomic Habits. One of the things that he talks about is about this thing of choosing in advance. Make the good choices the easy choice. Okay? If the choice to get sucked in down some internet rabbit hole of destiny is the easy choice, then you'll do that. But if the good choice is to play the piano or play the guitar. I was talking to someone recently and I was like, so, you're choosing this, but you want to choose that. I said, where is your guitar in your room? He's like, it's in the case. I said, well, get it out of the case and put the guitar in front of the telly. Because then it's easier to pick up the guitar and practice the guitar rather than go to the other places that you think you might want to go. If you want to deal with temptation, if you want to deal with the things that get in the way, we have to be intentional and make some good choices about it. Protect your hours. Block them out. What do I mean by that? I mean, just have whole chunks of time where you are choosing to live differently. Lots of us have to work on screens. We have to have the computer in front of us. We have to communicate with people on screens, whatever it might be. But for the other times, the times that you have control, block out time where you're just not doing that stuff, where you're going out for a walk or your phone is in the other room, or just sit there and think, I've got an hour. Who could I be a blessing to? Who could I write to? I wrote 3 letters recently to my kids. It's one of the best things I've done. They all 3 of them, I haven't written it to the youngest one because he's still at home, but all 3 of them phoned me up and cried. Hooray. Result. I'm not sharing with you the context of the letter. Next one, I'm coming into land. Get lost. No, I mean, not you. Don't get lost. Get lost. Get lost like Jesus. Jesus was often uncontactable. He had left his phone. He'd gone out without his phone and he'd switched off Find Me What's It on the Google thingy. Okay? He was offline. Up the hill, up the mountain. He'd gone. It's okay in this day and age to just not be present and not be available and not answer your phone. Be present in a physical community. When we get to eyeball each other and go, Marnie, no, really, how was the week? And Marnie gets to ask me, and we eyeball each other. Really, come on, yeah. When we're actually present with each other and asking each other, oh, come on, Mark, how's your praying? When was the last time you actually sat and listened to what the Holy Spirit was saying? Not for work, not for church, this place, but for you. Yeah. Ask, what does it mean to be present? What does it actually mean to be in the room? And sometimes that being in the room might be less words from you and more listening. Know whose story you're in. Jesus knew where he had come from and where he was going. And so often as we fill ourselves up with this world that we're now having to live in and navigate, we can get caught up in other people's story rather than the story that we're supposed to be part of. The story where Jesus is king. I think I'm going to probably run a couple of minutes over, but I'll be done by about 5 past. I hope that's okay. I just want to take some time on behaviours. It might take me quicker than that, but we'll see. Behaviours. Ask. How would I behave if this was in person rather than online? If this person who I am yelling at online, or whatever it might be, if they were in front of me, how would I behave? This one's important. actually, especially if you want to, if you do want to be in this world, kind of online world, what you have to do is you have to take some responsibility for training the machine. What do I mean by that? I mean that all of these channels will serve you up stuff to see whether you are interested in it. Okay? And you just scrolling on past, if you're in that scrolling business at that time, and scrolling past going, no, that doesn't help. You actually have to actively go, no, I don't want to see that. So, pastor confessions. About 5 years ago, I bought my wife some underwear online. There you go. It's not a sin, by the way. But now, it means that I do actually have to be pretty ruthless about going, no, I am not interested in that. Thank you. No, I am not interested. And then it will try me on man pants to see if that's any better. Pretty consistently. And I just have, no, actually, if I want boxers, I'll just go to Next. It's okay. You have to train the machine. Okay, it's just a machine, and if what's sitting in there for you is some stuff, you have to just go, no, that's not what I want to see. Anybody feeling like in the last kind of 50 minutes, hour, that you've missed out on something? By having your phones on the table? Anyone feel better having not kind of whipped their phone out just to see if, Searle's been fired yet? We have that panic about missing out. Don't get overwhelmed by it. Just acknowledge it. Watch where you throw your pearls. Just because you know something to be true and right does not mean that you should put it on the internet. Because sometimes what you're doing is you're throwing your gold to people who are just not interested in listening. But when you find the person that's ready to listen, when you find the person that is hungry, then you can share your gold, your pearls with them. This next one, I shouldn't even need to write this, but I do. Do not post on the internet when drunk or angry. I don't know why some of you are laughing. I mean, it's just, sorry, but it still happens. In every church context I have been in, okay, there will be occasions where someone just rants on Facebook about something or other of someone who's done such and such to so and so. I have a word for you. It's 2 words. If this is, I don't actually think it's any of you in this room, but if anybody watching later on, stop it. Okay? Just don't do it. If you have something like that to say, well, don't. Get the person in front of you and actually have a conversation with them. Don't put it on Facebook. If you have tough stuff to say it in person. In person. Do not send them an email. Do not especially send them a WhatsApp. Okay? Say it in person. Go out for coffee. I'll summarize these next 2 in a moment by explaining what I do. Message delays. So I have a message delay system. I don't think any of you in this room have been on the brunt of it, but the message delay system works like this. If you want to send me messages that are aggressive, rude, unkind, whatever, you will not get a response for an hour. If you choose then to send another one, you will not get a response for a day. If you choose to send another one, you will not get a response for a week. And every response will be the same. The response will be, Would you like to meet for coffee? I'd love to talk with you about this. Okay. I have rules. I have rules because I need them. I have rules because everything in me just wants to go, oh, if I just push. Yeah. And I have rules because I know that I've messed up. So, these rules have been in place for a long time, before WhatsApp. And the story is this. I was running a youth group at a time. That puts it at least 2 decades ago. And the youth group that I was running was going really well, and we managed to engage a whole load of the local youth as well, who were slightly more interesting. Phones are pinging now. That's important. You need to get that. And I went away for the weekend, and one of the local youth who had started coming up, we were playing football with them before we did the Friday evening thing in the car park. And then some of them were starting to come on the Friday evening, and some of them had come to faith. But then I went away for the weekend, and one of the local youth attacked the local shopkeeper with a crowbar. Not the best scenario. Before I got back at the end of the week, the church leadership had shut down all of the youth work and had made decisions on my behalf as to how everything would go here in order to reassure the nice church parents. I'm then emailing about this on the Monday morning with the person that had made the decisions. And we are having some crossed emails. And he's sending some stuff, and I'm sending some stuff. And in response to the stuff that he had sent, I came up with the best line ever. I was like, here's the line. What happened to grace? Exclamation mark. I was like, that's brilliant. This is just going to absolutely nail him. He's going to feel bad. He's going to understand what he's done. All the rest of it. He then sent quite a long response, which explained to me that Grace had been part of the youth group a number of years ago, but had left because of her parents. There is following reasons. I went berserk. So I have rules. I have rules to protect my heart and to protect your heart. And I'd encourage you to put some things in place, okay? And some of those things are, especially around WhatsApp and Messenger and all that kind of stuff, we can say a bunch of stuff in a moment. Just don't do it. And if you need a system for putting the brakes on, you're very welcome to adopt my system, okay? Which is message delays, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week. And the last question is this: what are you subscribed to? What have you said yes to in your heart? Whether it's for watching the news, reading the news, Facebook, YouTube, whatever other platforms that you're on. I just got bored with them about 4 years ago, so I've not kind of subscribed to many more. Whatever the intention of your heart is, those places where you've subscribed and gone, yes, to this being a part of me. Is that right? Are there places where you need to unsubscribe? And just go, I'm going to let Jesus be the governor of my heart and my mind and my living. Amen? Amen. I'm going to pray. Father God, thank you that you're good and that you're faithful. And as we find ourselves in this slightly odd world, help us to learn how to give ourselves over to you, to choose you, to allow you to be the governor of our minds. And teach us how to be robust in cutting things off so that we can be more attentive to you and to be present everywhere we are. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you for listening. That is the last one for this year, and we are working on lining up 3 more for next year. So once we have those, we'll let you know what they are. But thanks for coming, and God bless, and we'll see you soon.